was so much fun. She was a very young, 52 years of age, and she was full of energy and spirit, and she was mischievous and fun and adventurous and engaged. She was really an outdoor person and liked to be active. She was a tennis player at one point. Later, and here in this later part of her life, she enjoyed walking, and she was an avid walker. She was great and walked all over the country wherever she was. She enjoyed seeing the surroundings of where they were at that period of time. She was a fabulous mother, a lot of fun. Of course, when you get older and you can appreciate what your parents have been through and what they've done, and you are to that point where you appreciate them so much, and you can really have a different relationship with them. And she was such a great friend, and we enjoyed having her around so much. She was such a great super grandmother. My twins were 6, and she would get down on the floor. She had on a dress and pantyhose. She didn't care. She would get down and play trucks, and it didn't matter where they were. She kind of reverted back to that, I can play 6-year-old boys too. And she loved all of her grandkids and was there for, I believe, just about all of their births. And so she immersed herself in that and traveled to the different parts of Texas where we all lived, and would come and stay for a week with us and spend time with us and the kids. So she was great in that aspect. She was always involved and engaged in any community she was in. She loved people and loved talking to people. She never met a stranger, truly. She would go to a restaurant and sit and strike up a conversation. She just was so easy with people and fun to be around, and she loved to play cards. She was an excellent pianist, could play anything, hear a song, and sit down and play it perfectly. She was a great singer. She accompanied our youth choir in church. She was always involved in our activities when we were growing up. So she was a very special person, and truly a great person to know and to be around. And we all 3 of us girls loved her very much and valued her so much as a mother, but also as a grandmother and just as a really great friend. So we loved her very, very much. On July 10th, 1991, my boys and I were planning a trip to come to Farmington for a week and stay with Mother in the hotel where they were staying. And she was really excited about us being here, and we were going to do all kinds of fun things. So we were really excited, and we were going to be leaving around 7:30, and just before 7:30 the phone rang, and it was her husband, Lynn Taylor, who told me that she had been, what they thought at first, that she had been hit by a car and that she was killed. And so it was such an unbelievable, surreal moment that it was just so hard to wrap my head around that, because one moment I'm just about to be out on the road, and then the next moment we're being told that she was killed, and my husband had already gone to work, and so I struggled. It was a struggle to dial a phone number that I dialed daily, probably a couple of times a day, to even dial that number. It was, I was hysterical and beside myself, and he came home and kind of took over taking care of the kids, and it was just, it was almost like you are at an out-of-body experience. You're there, you're feeling the pain and all of the horrible thoughts and visions that come into your head when you think about somebody being hit by a car or killed, playing those scenes over and over in your mind, and just the great loss you feel. We were numb. We were absolutely numb and just pretty much maintaining on an autopilot, I suppose, that just lets you get through this somehow. We contacted my sisters who both lived outside of Amarillo, but they're both in the state of Texas, and they, of course, made arrangements to bring their families in. So that day was kind of a fog. People coming in and out, of course, mostly our family, to pay respects, and so it was a very surreal moment and very painful, a moment that you just can't go back to that. You can't really feel that again, and the pain was just undescribable. Such a great sense of loss and grief, and really a feeling of just being totally lost. It was just such an incredibly sad day and painful. After we had initially been told that Mother had been killed by a hit and run, which was devastating enough, we later found out, several hours later, found out that Mother had indeed been beaten to death. And that was just unfathomable, that someone would beat her to death while she was taking a morning walk. It was really incomprehensible and very hard to even bring ourselves to face that at that period in time. It was enough that we were just facing that she wasn't with us anymore, and so I think we kind of buried that bit of information till we got through the funeral and the necessary things that you go through when someone passes away. And so after that initial time, then you begin to start to have to digest this other information. And while we initially learned about it, it didn't seem to make that big a difference to me that she was gone, and that was my focus. As time went on, of course, beating someone to death becomes a lot more horrific. And so dealing with that in itself as the years went on became harder and harder. The thought that the fear that she must have felt, the agonizing over how much pain she went through, all of those thoughts that you tend to obsess on. When you've pushed all these thoughts inside of you, push them down so that you can raise your kids and so that you can take them to school and talk to a teacher and carry on a normal everyday life, that you have to go on. And as much as you want to, hide yourself in the bedroom and put your head under the covers and scream and cry, you can't do that. So you process things as you can. You may be able to process a very small bit of information and deal with that for weeks or months. And kind of that's the way we dealt with it. I had a great support with my husband who helped me out immensely, but I know not everybody has that. They're not lucky enough to have that kind of support. So the 23 and a half years since the time of her death, we've of course gone through various stages of grief and anger, resentment, such deep sadness and loss, such a loss. We have missed so much. Something will happen and I'll think, even still, I'll think, Mother would have just said this, or what would Mother have said? Even 23 and a half years later, I still do that. So she missed so many milestones with my kids and the other grandkids. There were 5 grandkids altogether, and she loved each one of them passionately. So we have kept Mother alive, of course, through pictures and stories, and so we feel like the other grandkids can at least remember, maybe not remember, but create memories through our stories of Mother and pictures of her that we have with them. But my kids, my 6-year-olds, definitely remember her, and so she's missed so much. The graduation, of all of her grandkids from high school and then college after that. My kids, my twin grandbabies being born, she's missed that. She's about to have one granddaughter that's about to get married. And so those things are so bittersweet because you rejoice that you're a part of it and that you get to see it, but part of you just wishes that you could share that with someone that you miss so desperately, that was such a huge part of your life and their lives. So those times are very bittersweet, and she would have loved to experience those things. It's been very hard because it's a small group. Thank heavens there's not a huge group of people that go with crimes that are unsolved. It's much bigger than I'm sure any of us would want or would even want to admit, that crimes don't go unsolved, and so people are left with these horrible questions, things that we don't know the answers to, and of course you play those over and over again. So if you could find a group of people that were supportive of that, who know exactly what you're going through. We weren't lucky enough to have that where we live, so finding somebody to connect with those feelings can sometimes be hard. So I had a really hard time dealing with that and dealing with all of those emotions that you don't know what to do with, and they may come out at times that you feel like really aren't appropriate, but it's hard to control those times, and it's hard to know when you're going to have one of those moments where you just all of a sudden you can't seem to function well, or you start having all of these feelings and all of these memories that are brought up, even 24 years later as we're in Farmington. A lot of those memories of what she must have felt that day, and just being on a walk, something that was just so simple and so everyday for her, and something that she did and enjoyed so much, that she could be so brutally assaulted, brings up such visceral feelings that it is hard to go back to that. But the fact is, those never leave you. You might be able to suppress it, and they soften as the years go by, but with, of course, holidays, birthdays, milestones, events in your kid's life, those come up again. So going from July 10th, 1991 to the date we are now, we have been through so many things, and Mother has never left me. She has been with me through this. I feel like she has been with us as we're here in Farmington, and so I'm hoping that anybody that has to go through this can find some support and be able to talk to people. And these emotions are very strong, and so it's very painful at times, but you can get through it, and I've gotten through it, and I have a super great life, and I'm so thankful for everything I have. I'm thankful for the 30 years that I had with my mom, and we just still miss her very much. So we've been here a week in Farmington, and we're here to draw attention to my mother's case and perhaps bring it back to the public's attention once again, since it has been 24 years, and we know people have lives and they go on, and this kind of leaves their memory. We want everybody to remember this again, and hopefully we can get some tips called in, no matter how small or insignificant you might think something was. If you saw something different that morning, or mornings leading up to that, or that just seemed out of place or odd, or just even a little different that you weren't used to seeing, if you heard something that was different, if you heard something through the grapevine, if somebody confided something in you, you just don't know how the smallest thing might be the biggest break that we need to solve this case. So we just really implore you to search your memories about that day, that morning, try and think of, if you've heard anything, if somebody told you something. Again, if you could please call those tips into the Farmington Police Department. My family and I would certainly appreciate it, as we are really trying to get answers and some closure to this case. We really seek justice for my mother, and for the other cold cases that are coming. We seek answers for all of those, and hopefully closure for all of these families who've had to experience and endure this horrible nightmare that we've had to endure. So thank you.